UFC 317, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira is just taking place. And while I am very critical of this card because I think the UFC could have done a lot more, it's pretty good. There are a lot of hidden gems throughout the card, and the main event is a solid banger. Regardless, I'm going to break down every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. All right, we start off with the first fight on the card, Niko Price versus Jacobe Smith. Now, anybody who's watched Niko Price fight over the last 3 years, this is pretty obvious. You gotta pick Jacobe Smith because it's fucking Niko Price. Niko Price, I believe, is on a three-fight loss streak. Actually, no, he beat Alex Morono, but that I don't really count that as a win in 2024 at this point. And Niko Price, he's been ragdolled by Themba Garimbo, got knocked out by Robbie Lawler in his retirement fight, and he's just been getting chinned a lot over his past couple of fights, and I don't really like that against someone like Jacoby Smith. Jacoby Smith's got some dangerous hands, and he's got some wicked wrestling that he can always use in his back pocket. I think if Niko Price is gonna win this fight, it's gonna be through pitter patter shots, and the third. I like a bullshit decision because I don't even think Niko Price can like definitively win this fight. I'm gonna pick Jacoby Smith to get the job done within the first two. Honestly, I have no idea why the UFC booked this. Like Jacoby Smith just knocked out Preston Parsons in the first round a couple of weeks back, and I think Niko Price is a step below Preston Parsons. So I'm gonna say that if Jacoby Smith doesn't get a highlight reel finish, then this is gonna be quite disappointing. But Jacoby Smith should get the job done. Now, moving on, we got Jhonata Diniz versus Alvin Hinez. Now, billion-dollar company in the UFC can't get pictures of fighters on their roster. All right, it's expected. They do this all the time. But I'm gonna go with Jhonata Diniz simply because I've never heard of this guy called Alvin Hinez. If you are some regional or unranked heavyweight in like outside of the UFC, I'm never gonna pick you to win a fight in within the UFC because most guys outside of the UFC in the heavyweight division are straight up trash. Unless your name is Francis Ngannou, Jairzinho Rosenstrike, maybe you can say Alexander Romanov. It's also convenient that he is a heavyweight in the United States. As you all know, the United States has some of the highest BMI people in the world, and I can't really trust anybody in the heavyweight division from the US to win a fight. So I'm gonna go with Jhonata Diniz to get it done. Jhonata Diniz actually has some decent kickboxing. Like I know he got fraud checked by Marcin Tybura, but that's what Marcin Tybura does. He just smudges you up against the canvas before raining down ground and pound shots or trying to look for a submission. I don't think Alvin Hinez is really going to come out here looking for a submission or anything along those lines. And Jhonata Diniz, he is pretty dangerous on the feet. So I'm going to expect Jhonata Diniz to get a KO, but maybe not because these are two sack of shit heavyweights who don't really train like outside of cardio kickboxing. All right, moving on. We got Sedriques Dumas versus Jackson Mcvey. I have no idea who Jackson Mcvey is, but I'm gonna pick Jackson Mcvey simply because it's Sedriques Dumas in 2025. How are you gonna rely on Sedriques Dumas to show up to Fight Week? Hell, he might get arrested before coming to International Fight Week. I don't understand why the UFC is giving this guy so many opportunities. Like the guy has literally more arrests than he has won fights in the UFC. At some point, you're gonna question whether or not Sedriques Dumas is actually committed to staying as a top level MMA fighter. But outside of that, Sedriques Dumas, I don't really rate him. He just outside of just NPC clinching. There's nothing really threatening about Sedriques Dumas. It's not like he's going out there knocking fools out, and it's not like he's ragdolling people on the ground. So I'm gonna say that Jackson McVee, if he's like not bottom level middleweight division, then I think he should be able to beat Sedriques Dumas. I don't know who Jackson McVee is, but based on Sedriques Dumas's past record, I'm gonna say that Jackson McVee should get the job done. Now, moving on, we got Terrance McKinney versus Viacheslav Borschev. Now, this is where I've actually done extensive tape study on this. I'm gonna go with Viacheslav Borschev. Like Terrance McKinney, like I know that he has an extensive ground game that he can use, and Viacheslav Borschev, his ground game isn't exactly the best. He gets ragdolled in a lot of his fights where the fight takes on place on the ground. And on the feet, yeah, Vyacheslav Borshev's got some good combos, but he's very chinny, and it's not like he's got this one punch knockout power. But can you really trust Terrance McKinney to actually like implement some sort of game plan? Like I can definitely see Terrance McKinney just throwing like batshit wild crazy stuff and hoping that Vyacheslav Borschev gets knocked out in the first round. I don't think Vyacheslav Borschev is gonna get knocked down in the first round. Yeah, he's been dropped a lot by a lot of guys, but he's never been put away within the first. I think Vyacheslav Borschev, maybe he goes through some opposition in the first round, but once Terrence McKinney goes past the first round and he realizes, oh wait, this guy's still here. McKinney's gonna do some stupid shit, and before you know, he's gonna get caught on the chin, and Borschev should win this fight as the fight progresses because he fights better in the later rounds. I'm gonna go with Vyacheslav Borschev, probably by a late round TKO. I don't know exactly what round, whether it be 2 or 3, but I'm gonna go with Vyacheslav Borschev to get the job done. Now, moving on, we got Viviane Arujo versus Tracy Cortez. Can we all be honest here? Who in their right mind would watch Tracy Cortez outside of just gooning purposes? Because Tracy Cortez is not good whatsoever. Tracy Cortez, her highlight on in our last fight with Rose Namajunas was the fact that Cortez wore eyelashes, fake eyelashes, into the cage, and Rose Namajunas knocked one of them out. And outside of that, Cortez is not good at anything. I question whether or not she can shoot a double leg. I don't know what she really does well on the feet. Like, I guess she's got some boxing, but and her leg kicks are non-existent. As for Viviane Arujo, I think she's a crafty vet. I think she'll like show the experience difference between Arujo and Cortez because keep in mind Tracy Cortez is not even all that active. It's been roughly a year since Tracy Cortez has last fought. And to be honest, I don't really rate any of her performances. I know she beat Jasmine Jasudavicius back in the day, and now Jasmine Jasudavicius is on a 6 fight win streak and like top 5 in the flyweight division. But can I be real? I think that was a fluke because I have no idea how Cortez was able to survive. Like Cortez, at this point, she's only here to build up a future OnlyFans fan base. And outside of that, I don't really think she's like seriously training. So I'm gonna go with Viviane Araújo to get the job done. Maybe Tracy Cortez can pull this off, but it's not like Tracy Cortez has finishing potential. And in the 3 round fight, to the cards, I think Viviane Araújo has more experience to pull this one out with like I don't know, some crafty vet stuff. Viviane Araújo should get the job done. All right. Moving on, we got Hyder Emil versus Jose Delgado. I love Hyder Emil. If you guys never watched the Hyder Emil fight, this guy is so fun to watch. Like he is the definition of a marauder, someone with zero defense, but he'll just trudge forward and just outright outdog you. That being said, I don't know if that style is gonna really work against Jose Delgado. Jose Delgado is very punishing on the feet. Like you make simple mistakes on defense, and Delgado will pick you apart. I think Delgado is the much cleaner striker, and although Hyder Emil was able to get through William Gomez, and I believe Hyder Emil won that fight based on the fact that William Gomez just backs off the whole fight. I'm gonna be real. William Gomez has zero knockout potential. Meanwhile, Jose Delgado, he's not as like technically sound and like quick like William Gomez, but I think he's a lot more powerful. And William Gomez was able to catch Hyder Emil with like tons of shots, but they weren't really able to knock Hyder Emil down. Whereas if Jose Delgado's the one throwing the shots and landing, I think Delgado will be able to drop Hyder Emil and just like beat the crap out of Hyder Emil. I really do hope Hyder Mill wins because again, he's a lot more fun fighter to me than Jose Delgado. But I think Jose Delgado was a lot more technically clean. I think he's a lot more powerful than a lot of opponents that Hyder Mill's faced. And although Jose Delgado is relatively unproven, just watch his fights with like Connor Matthews and the Dana White Contender Series, and you know that this guy's got some tricks up his sleeve on the feet. So I'm gonna go with Jose Delgado to probably get this done. Again, I've never really seen Hyder Emil get knocked out, but if anyone can do it in the unranked sessions, I think it's going to be Jose Delgado. So Jose Delgado probably going to get a round 2 TKO. All right, moving on, we got Jack Hermansson versus Gregory Rodriguez. I'm gonna go with Gregory Rodriguez. Now, I understand that Jack Hermansson put on that crafty vet performance against Joe Pyfer, and Joe Pyfer fights in a very similar manner to Gregory Rodriguez, marauding forward, just throwing big meaty hooks and hoping they get an early knockout. But the key difference is, uh, when Jack Hermansson fought Joe Pyfer, it was a 5 round fight where Jack Hermansson had to grit down and pull through the last 3 rounds. I don't think Jack Hermansson is going to be able to do this because this is a 3 rounder against Gregory Rodriguez. Not only are we down 2 rounds already, we also have Gregory Rodriguez, who's more well rounded than Joe Pyfer, in my opinion. I don't think Jack Hermansson is really going to be able to just jab and calf kick at range. I think Gregory Rodriguez is smarter than Joe Pyfer. Gregory Rodriguez will actually shoot takedowns if he keeps seeing Jack Hermansson back off the whole fight. And I think Gregory Rodriguez, he isn't as reliant on a one punch knockout shot. But whereas Joe Pyfer, if he doesn't get the knockout shot, he looks incredibly mid. I'm going to go with Gregory Rodriguez, probably to get a 29-28 decision, just winning the first 2 rounds. Maybe Jack Hermansson can pull out the third, but I don't think there's enough time for Jack Hermansson to get this job done because Jack Hermansson has no finishing potential. He usually wins his fights via decision, and I think Gregory Rodriguez is going to be too dangerous for Jack Hermansson for at least the first 2 rounds. All right, moving on to the main card, we got Payton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. Now, I do think Payton Talbot has a very good chance. Felipe Lima, I love him. I think he's going to be a future top five contender, but Peyton Talbot does pose a lot of threats to Felipe Lima. I've said in the beginning of the year when I said Felipe Lima is going to be ranked within this year. Felipe Lima, he's very good, but the one thing I can see him having a lot of trouble with are the fast, rangy strikers who can just pick him apart. And that's someone like Peyton Talbot. Peyton Talbot is electric on the feet, and yes, he got fraud checked by Hani Barcelos earlier this year, but does Felipe Lima have the grappling capabilities of a Hani Barcelos? Hani Barcelos is no slouch on the ground. Hani Barcelos just beat Cody Garbrandt, beat a grappling the whole fight, and although Felipe Lima is very well rounded, it's just a matter of whether or not Felipe Lima can take down Peyton Talbot. Maybe he can. Peyton Talbot's takedown defense isn't the best, and he does stay in guard often. But Felipe Lima, I don't know he can muscle around Peyton Talbot like Johnny Barcelos did, because Johnny Barcelos is a lot bigger than Felipe Lima. That's also another worry for this fight. I do think Felipe Lima is more well rounded than Johnny Barcelos, but can Felipe Lima take down Peyton Talbot? That's going to be the big question. I think he can. That's why I'm going to go with Felipe Lima to get the job done. But he can get picked apart on the feet. Although he's more well rounded, I can see Peyton Talbot just feeling more comfortable because the grappling isn't going to be as big of a threat compared to Johnny Barcelos. And I think Peyton Talbot, I'm going to say this though, although he's very good on the feet, and last but not least, I'm gonna say this about Peyton Talbot. Like, he has this bad habit of trying to look cool while trying to fight. And yes, it does work when he's winning, but he does this when he's losing as well to Hani Barcelos. So I think Felipe Lima, he's not gonna put that ego to his game plan. I think Felipe Lima, like, mixed martial arts is his life. He's gonna try to win this fight no matter how, whether it be dirty or whether it be clean. Like, I think Felipe Lima is the much hungrier fighter. I think Felipe Lima is a lot more focused into winning no matter what. So I think Felipe Lima can get the job done. I do see a big chance for Peyton Talbot because I think Peyton Talbot is a lot better than Felipe Lima on the feet. But I don't think to a point where Peyton Talbot's just gonna pick apart Felipe Lima for 3 rounds. And I don't think Peyton Talbot's grappling can be crusted after his performance with Johnny Barcelos. So I'm going to say that Felipe Lima gets the job done, 29-28 decision. All right, now moving on, we got Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. Uh Now, logic tells you that Brandon Royval is going to win this fight. He's a lot more experienced than Joshua Van. He is the very similar style to Charles Johnson, who just knocked out Joshua Van like last year. And Brandon Royval, he's been at the top, and also he's been preparing for this fight for like a full training camp. Meanwhile, Joshua Van is coming in as a short notice replacement. That being said, I'm gonna go with Joshua Van. Joshua Van is our Pookie Bear, and we gotta support him no matter what. And I do believe Joshua Van has a legitimate chance. Joshua Van can be able to pick apart Brandon Royval's boxing defense. I know Brandon Royval is very tricky, but outside of his range, I don't think he's as good as people think. I think it's his footwork and his range is what gives a lot of people problems. I think Joshua Van will be able to time a lot of his shots and just be able to get his reads as the fight progresses. And now I also know that Brandon Royval also builds up into this fights, but is it going to be as good as Joshua Van? I think Joshua Van is going to stay in front of Brandon Royval. I don't know if Brandon Royval is really going to be able to throw that much output considering Joshua Van will be in his face the entire time. And it's not like Brandon Royval is really going to finish Joshua Van. It's not like Brandon Royval, maybe he can take him down, but it's not like he's going to submit Joshua Van. So I'm going to go with Joshua Van to get this done 29-28. Maybe he gives up the first or the second round, but the third round, I believe that Joshua Van should be able to win this fight. All right, now moving on to the feature fight of the card, we got Beneil Dariush versus Hanato Moicano. This is very interesting because I do see a world where Beneil Dariush wins. However, I'm gonna go with Hanato Moicano to win this fight. Beneil Dariush, this is a very approachable matchup for him. Like it's not like someone who with one punch knockout power. If anything, Hanato Moicano is gonna be a jiu-jitsu specialist, and Beneil Dariush is one of the best anti-grapplers in the UFC. That being said, Beneil Dariush, I think the inactivity in the octagon, the fact that Beneil Dariush, he's getting slower and he's getting older, and the fact that he just hasn't fought all that often over the past 2 or 3 years or so. These are going to be factors when it comes to Renato Moicano versus Beneil Dariush. I think Renato Moicano, yeah, he lost to Islam Makhachev, but prior to that, he was very active and on a four-fight win streak against Benoit Saint-Denis, Drew Dober, Jalen Turner, and some other guy I don't really remember. My point being, Renato Moicano, although they're the same age, Hanato Moicano's fighting like someone in their prime. Meanwhile, Beneil Dariush is fighting like an actual unk. Also, you gotta note that while Beneil Dariush can take down Hanato Moicano, is he gonna finish Hanato Moicano on the ground? I don't think so. And yes, both guys will probably neutralize each other's jujitsu, and that leaves each other on the feet. Is Beneil Dariush gonna finish Hanato Moicano on the feet? I don't think so. And if Beneil Dariush is worse than Renato Moicano on the feet, I think that's a big problem. A lot of people criticize Renato Moicano striking because everyone thinks that Renato Moicano striking is pretty mid. Overall, I can see Beneil Dariush maybe building up to the fight, but Renato Moicano, again, he's also very smart. He's going to have a game plan thought out, and I think he's just going to be able to outpace Beneil Dariush for the first 2 rounds, especially because Beneil Dariush, again, very inactive, and he's coming off 2 KO losses. Although Hanato Moicano doesn't have the power of Charles Oliveira or an Armin Sarukian, I think Beneil Dariush is going to be very hesitant, and it's just going to play into Hanato Moicano's game, where Hanato Moicano can just pick apart Beneil Dariush's defenses. So I'm going to say that Hanato Moicano wins this fight, probably by decision. I don't know if Hanato Moicano is good enough to submit Beneil Dariush, but then again, not many people are in the first place. So again, Renato Moicano should be going to a decision. Maybe he can get a sub, but I'm gonna say decision just to be safe. All right, now moving on, we got Alexander Pantoja versus Kai Car France. I'm gonna go with Alexander Pantoja. There are just way too many options for Alexander Pantoja, in my opinion. The only way Kai Car France is gonna win this fight is if he wings an overhand right and just knock out Alexander Pantoja with an overhand right into an overhand left. Outside of that, the Alexander Pantoja has a lot more advantages. I think Pantoja's a taller. He's a lot more skillful. He can mix up his grappling a lot better than Kai Car France. There are just more avenues to win for Alexander Pantoja compared to Kai Car France. Now, maybe if Pantoja, there's a chance that he can just leave his chin out, where Kai Car France can just knock him out with one punch. But am I really going to rely on a one punch knockout at the top of flyweight? A lot of these guys are very skilled and they know how to fight. and I don't think anyone's just gonna get knocked down in one punch. Like I know Steve Erceg happened, but Steve Erceg is someone who's like very rangy, pick his shots. Pantoja's gonna jump in the fire and try to scrap with Kai Kara France, and I don't think Kai Kara France is really prepared for someone like that. Like, yeah, he fought Amir Albazi. Are you really gonna say that Amir Albazi is anywhere near the level of Alexander Pantoja? I don't think so. I think Pantoja is a lot better than a lot of oppositions Kai Kara France has won against, and he's also better than a lot of opposition that Kai Kara France lost against. So therefore, I'm going to say that Alexander Pantoja should get the fight done. 49-46, 48-47. I think it's going to be a fun scrap, and I think Alexander Pantoja, there's just more ways for him to win this fight. All right, now moving on, we got Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Ah, I'm gonna go with Charles Oliveira. Now, you might call this excessive glaze, and you would be right to do so. But I'm gonna say this: I don't think Ilia Topuria is nearly as good as grappling as people think. Like Topuria doesn't really show his grappling. The only times he shows it is against like primary strikers who are just also worried about the takedown threat. Outside of that, Ilia Topuria, when he's fighting someone who can actually wrestle and just take their opponents down, someone who actually prefers to stay on the ground, I think Ilia Topuria is going to show a lot of faults in his game. I think Charles Oliveira will be able to just bide his time. We've seen Oliveira just take the stance of more of a crafty vet and bide his time and just pick his shots rather than swinging big meaty hooks in the first or second round. I think Oliveira, the knees, the teeps, the head kicks, the jab, they're all there for Oliveira to keep Topuria at range. Now, I understand that Oliveira does get hit a lot by the overhand right, and the overhand right is one of Topuria's best weapons. That being said, Oliveira, again, he's been looking very calm lately. And yeah, you could say that Oliveira gets dropped a lot. But when's the last time Oliveira really got knocked out? Like you have to go back to like featherweight or like when Oliveira just moved up to the lightweight division before going on his like 10 or 11 fight win streak. I think Charles Oliveira, he's gonna do a good job of keeping Ilia Topuria at range, and once it hits the second and third round, I think that's when Oliveira is gonna show that he's still got it, and I think Oliveira is gonna be able to just slowly pick apart Ilia Topuria. I don't think Ilia Topuria, his grappling is gonna be there to nullify Charles Oliveira's. I think Charles Oliveira is got a wicked submission artist. I'm gonna be honest, I think this is partially cope because I don't want to see Charles Oliveira get knocked out. Charles Oliveira inspired me to train BJJ, and I don't want to see the guy who inspired me to train BJJ get knocked out by Ilia Topuria. So I'm gonna say that Charles Oliveira gets this done by finish. It's gonna be a feel good moment. Is this pure cope? Probably, but hey, I would rather be wrong about a Charles Oliveira winning than just outing Charles Oliveira in the first place. The champion has his name, and his name is Charles Oliveira. All right, that's going to be it for today's video. Leave a comment down below how you guys would rate UFC 317 for International Fight Week. I'm actually really excited for this main event. I really hope that Charles Oliveira pulls this off because I can't bear to see Charles Oliveira get knocked out. But regardless, leave a comment down below who you guys will be rooting for. And other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.